Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to the Wesleyan Connection. This podcast is primarily for the clergy and laity of the Holston Annual Conference. Join with me now as I take a look around the Connection and share some of the things happening in the churches of our annual conference. Hello, this is Pastor Terry Goodman, and I want to welcome you to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection podcast. As you know, this is billed as a weekly kind of podcast. However, if you've been trying to listen the last few months, you will have noted that a weekly kind of podcast has not been happening. Took some time off at Christmas, and now I'm in the midst of dealing with some health issues. My mom has been diagnosed with a couple of different forms of lung cancer. I would appreciate your prayers for her. Wilma Mills is her name. And I'm going to be burning the road up back and forth between Big Stone Gap, Virginia and Maryville, Tennessee, trying to sort of take care of her and get her back and forth to some doctor's appointments and radiation and chemotherapy treatment sessions. And so getting a weekly podcast up and running may not be something that is going to be possible for the next few months. However, I am not abandoning this idea of a podcast. It's just coming at a difficult time in my life to make it happen on a regular basis. With that said, I do have one available for us today. It's an interview that I did recently when I was at the conference office. I was down for an all-day meeting of the Board of Ordained Ministry on a Monday, and then a stewardship team and commission on equitable salaries on a Tuesday. And I had an opportunity to find Laura McClean in her office and talk with her about things related to the youth of our annual conference. In this particular interview, I talked with her about the recently held Resurrection 2018 event and about the upcoming event called The Gathering. I hope you enjoy this interview, and come back next week. I hope to have more things here for you to hear. I'm here today with Laura McClean. She is, what is your title again? Maybe it's changed since this time last year when we spoke.
It is Associate Director of Connectional Ministries, and specifically with youth and young adults. Okay,
that means that you probably had something to do with this resurrection if it happened just a few weeks ago.
That's right. Along with a great design team, worked on resurrection, and I have been in this position since 2008, and by far this is the best feedback we've had on any resurrection event since I've been on this side of things.
I went this year with my group, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The speaker and the music to me just sort of, I don't know, they clicked with me. I'm going, this might not be good if it's clicking with a 56-year-old, but I think it clicked with the youth as well.
I think so too. We've just heard really, really positive things, and the team, we go back and forth on what kind of speakers we have and what kind of bands we have. And of course last year we had Ring Collective, who is a big name band, and they were wonderful and really great, but their star is on the rise, and so they just didn't work out for us this year. And so we came across I Am They, and they were a really great fit. They were super wonderful to work with, as personable off stage as they were on stage, and just genuine about their heart for the Lord and wanting to share that and let the youth have a wonderful worship experience. And so they were a lot of fun and really wonderful. And we hope to have them back again next year.
Well, good. Once the grammarian in me got past their name, I Am They, and understood how they came up with it, I'm going, okay, I can live with it.
Right.
But it was sort of jarring to hear the name. I've been trying to think of how you would classify their music. Was it? It wasn't a hard driving rock. It wasn't a simple ballad. It was acoustic. I don't know. The interesting blend.
A little folky, maybe.
Okay.
I wouldn't say, exclusively folk, but something that I really loved about them was that they mixed their own music in with popular worship songs that folks that were attending already knew, and so that was a little bit familiar. And I think that's really nice when they can do that. anytime, the first year we have a new band, people are always a little iffy just because they don't know them. And it's interesting that the second year people are bought in and excited and all that good stuff.
I like their lyrics as well. I'm an Amazon Prime person, and their album's on Amazon Prime. So if you're out there, Amazon Prime, you can listen to them for free as part of your subscription. But they have some very good lyrics, very good messages that they're getting across on their songs.
Yeah, I agree. They're not just surface level, and I think that's a true reflection of who they are too. And I also really appreciated, I was talking with them, I guess it was Sunday afternoon after everything wrapped up, and they said something about their new album that was coming out, and they were releasing one song a week to kind of, lead up to it. And I said, well, did you mention that? Did you share that? And they said, no, that's not what this is about. We don't, we're not up there to just push our stuff, which is really refreshing. That's their livelihood, and they certainly had a captive audience, and so I assured them that we would share their album release things through our social media too. But I thought that was really cool that they were like, no, that's, we're here to do worship music for the weekend and not to promote what we're doing. So.
Well, the other part of the weekend was the speaker. Rachel Billups, was that her name?
That's correct.
From Ohio. Ginghamsburg. I passed that church on the way to my wife's parents who live in Michigan. I go, that's the Ginghamsburg church. And one of these days I'm actually stop and worship with them, I think. But she was great. She spoke to the kids. She got down onto a level, I think, that made a difference, and so.
Yeah, I think she spoke in a way that was really accessible for youth and adults. She had some great analogies talking about grace being like the chips and salsa at a Mexican restaurant, that you don't do anything, you just get there and those chips and salsa are there for you. Like grace is there for us, before we even have a response. But throughout the weekend she shared from her personal experiences and of those that she knew, and really did a great job of integrating scripture and tied into our theme really well. And again, she was really accessible. When we were talking before the weekend, she said, I really love to be out and about among the attendees. Can I do that? And we said, absolutely. But we also said, have you seen the schedule? It's a little exhausting. But she was, around in the exhibit hall and things a lot of times before the sessions, and just wanted to have an opportunity to talk to the youth and adults who were there. And since then, one of our CCYM members that's on our communications team asked her if she would be willing to do some resurrection follow-up videos. And so she said, sure. So those are being posted on our Holston Conference Youth Ministry Facebook page. And so she did the first one just this past week. And so just kind of informal, sharing some thoughts to keep us going, because that's always a challenge, I think. You have those mountaintop experiences, and then you get back into the everyday life, and it's not quite as easy as it might have been on the mountaintop.
Jacob or Andrew has not mentioned that to me. I'll have to mention that to my sons and have them check that out.
Absolutely.
We've sort of talked about in front of the scenes stuff, the music, the speaker. Go behind the scenes with me a little. How do you, as a design team, do you come up with the theme and then say to the speaker, here's your 2-word theme? You come up with the sermons, or do they say, I've got an idea of a series I'd like? How does it work?
Typically the design team does come up with the theme. We'll actually meet here in a few weeks and try to hammer out those details so that we can have that to pass along to a speaker. And everybody that's attended Resurrection knows that some speakers stay with that theme and some don't. And so, it's there, and Rachel really tied into it well. And this theme, actually, CCYM, we were tossing around ideas in our March meeting of 2017, and they came up with Work in Progress. And so it's, anybody that has a theme idea, feel free to send that to me. And so, the team comes up with it and passes it along, but we don't micromanage the speakers' talks, because we believe that we've chosen people that are relying on God and prayer to know what to say to our folks who are here, and so we let them kind of go as they see fit.
Well, there was some cohesiveness, I think, between her messages. You could feel how one sort of, at least I did, flowed into the next.
Absolutely.
And it was sort of built as you went. You were seeing progress in the making, so to
right.
speak.
Yeah.
So I'm very fortunate to have heard those messages. What are some other let's do the numbers. How many folks were there this time?
We had about 9,300 there this year. We were down a little bit. I don't know a clear reason for that. I don't think that there's anything necessarily. Of course, there was a lot of illness going around, so that may have affected our walk-ins at the door and that kind of thing, but still a great number of folks there. We had over 3,000 unique IP addresses that logged into our live stream, which is really exciting, and I think it's cool that folks back home can be a part of what's going on in worship. I heard of at least a couple of churches who, during their Sunday morning worship service, streamed a little bit of what was happening at Resurrection to have that connection with their youth who were in Pigeon Forge.
I was unable to get there on the Friday night one, but I did have my tablet, so I went on and streamed it. So that worked out well for me.
Great.
And I know of some folks at my church that streamed as well. Well, let's see, what other kind of numbers? How about the Youth Service Fund? How did we do on that?
Youth Service Fund, we were right around $19,000, which is fantastic. Our goal for this year is $33,000, so we've still got some money to raise, but certainly a great start, which Resurrection is generally our biggest chunk of money at one point. So that was some great giving there.
Have you ever thought of challenging each, if you had 9,000 people there and each of them brought $5, that would have been 45. Have you ever thought of doing something like that?
Yeah, well, and we, in our and what we send out, we say $10, but that happens for some and doesn't happen for others. We used to always say $2, and then the year that we did Imagine No Malaria, we saw how well that connected, and so we've really tried to hammer down and be specific about where the money goes. It got to be a little difficult to tell the story of YSF and where that money goes because there were so many different grants. So CCYM has worked to make a few larger grants so that we can say, and this year Camp in the Community was one that received a grant from YSF, and so we had a video from them, and we had somebody that shared about the wildfire relief fund that we gave to last year. So we're trying to tell that story clearly so folks know what their money's doing.
The Youth Service Fund, that does not get support from the annual conference budget. That's money that the kids raise, the children. Someone in my local church says, don't call them kids. That's a baby goat. The children, the youth.
That's right.
That the youth raise themselves, and they determine where it goes.
Yep. Yeah, the tagline for Youth Service Fund is money raised by youth, distributed by youth to benefit youth. And so there's a component of that, of what we raise, that we also send on to the general church. And so there is like a worldwide youth service fund as well that Global Young People's Ministries distributes. So 30%, 23% of what we raise goes there. And then the rest stays with us to give grants to folks in Holston and beyond Holston.
Back about, I'm going to say 1998, 1999, there was this huge Methodist youth world gathering in Knoxville. Any chance one of those is going to be repeated sometime soon? Or?
Yeah, they happen every 4 years. So there's one in 2019, and it's going to be in Kansas City. The last one was in Orlando. We've had a few churches from Holston that have gone to the past 2 or 3 events, but of course the ones in Knoxville really connected with our Holston people. And a little fun fact, the two that were in Holston, 99 and 2003 at UT, are the largest youth events.
The 99, when I was there, we would leave from Rockwood every morning about 6 to drive to Knoxville and stay in and get home at like 11 at night.
At least, yeah, I'd say.
And get up the next morning and repeat it again. But it had great time to bond with the youth. Let's
Absolutely.
put it that way. That worked well. What other things related? What's another number from Resurrection that might amaze us?
We had 258 folks who filled out a card or went online to respond to feeling a call to ministry, which is really exciting. I think Rachel did a wonderful job of sharing about a call to ministry. She shared about one of her friends from seminary who grew up attending Resurrection, who responded to her call to ministry at Resurrection, and that was really neat to hear. I think a lot of our folks around Holston could tell that same story, that's where they kind of took that first step to respond to a call to ministry.
Was there any other numbers that we can talk about?
I think those are the biggies.
Okay. Anything you want to say about Resurrection before we close out this part of our talk?
It was a great weekend. We're looking forward to Resurrection 2019, which will be January 25th through 27th. It sounds like it's a week later, but it's really not. We are going to consistently be, as long as we can see into the future, the weekend following Martin Luther King.
Okay. You mentioned in our pre-conversation that in addition to Resurrection, there's an event coming up in March. Mm-hmm. What's that event called?
That event is called Discovery, and that is for those youth, specifically for high school aged youth who feel called to ministry, who want to explore that call in some way. And so that can be folks who know exactly what they feel like God is calling them to do, and that can be for folks who feel like they feel this tugging in their heart, but they're not exactly sure where that leads. And so throughout the weekend, we'll be at Camp Wesley Woods, March 16th through 18th. And we'll have the opportunity to hear from folks in various forms of ministry, both ordained and lay ministry. We'll hear from local church pastors, folks at the conference level, youth ministry, music ministry, all those kinds of things. And then you'll also have a chance to talk with others in small groups who may be feeling those same kind of calls. So it's a great way to really take that first step into exploring the call that God has placed into your life.
I assume there's some sort of registration for that event?
There is. If you go to holstonyouth.com and click on Discovery, it has all of the information and a link to fill out the registration form. And if money is an issue, if the registration fee is an issue, I would encourage you to contact me, Laura McClean, and my information is there on holstonyouth.com. We don't want fees to be the reason that somebody can't come. We can help work with that and find some scholarship money and that kind of thing.
Okay. Is that an event that is speaker driven, or is that there's just going to be various ministers, or how's it work?
We typically do 3 sessions throughout the weekend with a speaker, and we're going to have a young adult, Alex Sprinkle, who some of you all may know, is going to be leading worship for us throughout the weekend. And then we'll also have kind of a panel discussion, and then small groups, and your small group leaders will be various ministry leaders. Some will be ministers, some will be, church pastors, some will be children's folks or youth folks, college chaplains, all of those kinds of things.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for sharing with me and those listening about the Resurrection and the Discovery Weekend. And I pray that your guidance and love for youth will continue to grow, and that the CCYM will continue to do the great things it's been doing.
Thank you so much.
This is Pastor Goodman. Thanks for listening to this edition of the Wesleyan Connection. Be sure to check back often for more podcasts.